They say just past the last streetlight on Briar Road, the night gets heavy. You can feel it in your teeth if you keep your mouth closed. But if you open it, the dark moves in. I didn't believe that until the night I pulled over there. Hazards clicking, like a metronome for panic, breath fogging the windshield, then smearing away like something licked it clean from the other side. Doors locked, engine idling. The road ahead was a strip of coal, a mile of nothing locals call Hollow Mile, because jokes make fear easier to carry. Then the radio cut out, static, every station. Then silence, the kind that isn't empty, just waiting. And that's when I heard it. 2 soft taps on the roof, not loud, not threatening, just asking. I hit the gas and didn't look back until the diner's neon cut through the dark. When I did, there was a handprint in the dust on my trunk. 5 long fingers, wrong somehow, like each one belonged to someone else. That was the beginning, even though technically it had already started years before, the way rot starts long before the fruit falls. I moved to Larkspur for silence. I told myself I wanted to hear things again. The kettle when it boils, a footstep that means home, the right kind of quiet. But the truth is, I wanted my old noise gone. The city keeps the worst parts of you on a loop. Out here, the nights promised to be blankness, where I could write something new. I rented the old Postel house at the edge of town. It had a porch that slouched like a tired shoulder and a wind chime that never rang because nothing pleasant ever found it. The realtor looked relieved to hand me the keys, not because of the commission, but because the house seemed to make people feel watched. It settles, she said, meaning the house, meaning me, meaning the story of why it sat empty. You'll hear it. Larkspur is almost a postcard if you crop out its edges. Main Street has a bakery where the bread is better the days they forget the salt. The hardware store keeps a jar of screws on the counter labeled free like a dare. Across from the church is a square of grass they call a park, though the benches all face away from the woods, as if the trees insisted on privacy. Everyone you meet is polite with their smile and careful with their eyes. They ask where you're staying. They don't ask why. They call Hollow Mile a weather issue, a topographical quirk, a radio dead zone because names help, but only if they're lies you can carry. Don't stop there, they said, and then laughed to smear the seriousness away. I nodded like a person who doesn't stop when told not to stop. The house was the kind of old that apologizes for every sound it makes. The floorboards confessed as I walked them. The plumbing coughed up its history. I told myself the hum I heard at night was the fridge, and not the power lines murmuring to whatever listens between them. On my second night, I opened the kitchen window to bleed off the heat of the oven and heard, from far, too far, the quick double tap I'd heard on my car. Someone testing a door, Someone telling a door the rules. It came again, closer, like a knocked heartbeat. 2, then 2. The wind chime stayed still. A moth butted the screen, frantic and stubborn. I pushed the window shut so fast, I pinched my palm. My blood made a little print that looked like a petal pressed flat, which would have been pretty if the glass hadn't felt warm beneath it, like a cheek. Larkspur taught me how to pretend everything is fine in public. You can be terrified so long as you bag your apples and ask for stamps. It's a trick a lot of people know, and in Larkspur, they know it better. At the diner, a man in a deputy's uniform took his coffee black and watched the door in the way of someone who expects a thing not to use the door. His name was Marshall Ridge, and he had a decent face if you didn't look long enough to see the endurance behind it. "You're the Postel place," he said without looking at me, which told me my car had been seen. My presence added to the list of fragile good ideas. When I said yes, his mouth made the straight line people make when they wish you well, and also wish you'd leave. "If you hear anything after midnight," he said, "it's the coyotes." "What if it's 2 taps?" I asked before I could bury the thought under sugar packets and a civilian smile. He set his cup down and finally met my eyes. "Then it's the wind." There's a game towns play with outsiders. How much can we say without saying the thing? I started noticing the rules. You could talk about Hollow Mile if you laughed. You could mention the old number station you'd sometimes catch on the radio in March, how it would spit a string of digits in a woman's bored voice, then fall quiet. So long as you said, "Must be a generator on the blink." You could say the name Postel, as if it were just a family, and not a lingering. What you couldn't do was ask why the post office had a box of unmailed letters with no stamps, all addressed to the same house on Briar Road, all bearing the same short message written in the same hand. "Come home when it quiets." I wasn't looking for secrets, but secrets look for people who listen. The first postcard found me underneath the wiper of my car outside the grocery store. The front showed a lake that wasn't ours. The back was blank, except for a pencil line where an address should be. Hollow Mile. No street, no number. A joke, I told myself, while I slid it into my pocket because jokes can be keepsakes. The second thing was a tape recorder in a cardboard box on my porch, the kind clerks used for returns back when stores still trusted you. Inside was a cassette labeled in block letters. Field recording, 1986. I didn't have a cassette player. It didn't matter. I could feel the quiet inside the plastic, like a moth under a glass. Flutter, flutter, pause. People leave maps for themselves when they're scared, so they can get back. That's what I told myself when I started drawing the edge of town. My house, Hollow Mile, the diner, the church, the hardware store, the little junk shop that sold typewriters that all had the same missing letter. I put the wind chime on the map and the lampposts and the phone booth that never had a phone. It calmed me to make the world smaller on paper. It didn't change what happened when I drove past the last streetlight on Briar Road and the radio went from all the songs you know to the breath of something with patience. The night after the tape recorder arrived, I woke at 2:14 to the sound of a kettle boiling. I don't have a kettle. It was the precise rising whine of steam finding a mouth. It came from the porch. I stood in the hall in socks, too much aware of my own breathing. The house had learned my breaths, and I had learned it's the way two people who don't love each other still know the other's footsteps. I opened the door an inch and felt the heat of a kettle that didn't exist. There was no steam. There was moisture, condensation beating on the inside of the screen like sweat on a lip. The wind chime turned once, only to settle. And then, in a gap between sounds so small most people would have missed it, came the double tap on the wood, soft as a polite announcement. 2, then 2. The screen trembled, not with wind, but with listening. I called the deputy because there's a social contract. If you call a person who wears a badge and a gun, they arrive and make small jokes and make you feel silly, and then stay in their car outside your house, long enough for you to fall asleep. He came. He didn't joke. He stood on the porch with his thumbs on his belt, like he was remembering what men are supposed to do to keep houses safe. He said the word coyotes again, but this time he didn't make it plural. Listen, he said. We listened. The night poured itself from tree to ground for a long time. There, he said finally, when the double tap came from the porch roof above us. He looked at me like he needed me to say it wasn't real. I didn't help him. Something moved on the shingles, too light for a man, too exact for an animal. It stopped above the door and pressed once, like a hand. The wind chime, 6 inches to the left, did not ring. What is Hollow Mile? I asked, because the question wouldn't stop existing just because we were choosing not to hear it. A dead space, he said. 2 hills that disagree. A pocket. Wind piles up there. So does sound. He hesitated. So do other things. He didn't look at me when he said it. You picked a bad house for quiet, he added, as if that could be a kindness. What happened to the Postels? His face shut a door. They left. Left what? That's a better question, he said. And I knew then he had a list of answers he'd promised the town not to say out loud. There are 2 kinds of small-town folklore, the made and the inherited. Larkspur dealt in inheritance. People knew where not to park, because long ago someone kept their car there and never came back to drive it away. People stood on the right side of Hollow Mile, so that, if their batteries died, they could coast back toward town, like a superstition you could explain with physics. The one story that kept returning to me wasn't about stations on the radio or the number voice in March. It was about letters. In the junk shop, there was a bundle of paper tied with twine, the way you keep something you don't want to read yet. The woman who ran the shop let me have them for $1 and a sentence. You won't like them. The letters were all to the same person. No name, just you. And they all ended with the same line. I will come when it quiets. Between that promise, they cataloged sounds. The mill whistle that used to call men to work and then didn't. The clank of the train that stopped stopping. The bell that tolled for a fire that burned only black smoke and ash that didn't belong to anything you could point to after. The oldest letter was from 1951. The newest was last year. When I held the last letter, my radio turned itself on in the other room. I know it turned itself on because I had unplugged it. It cranked the dial and landed on static. Then on the number station everyone joked about, 5, 8, 8, 2, 3, 5, 7. The voice was bored the way an ocean is bored, tireless, indifferent. It read a sequence, then paused, then said, "Message repeats," in a voice that sounded for the first time like a woman tired of saying it. Behind the numbers, in the valley the sound didn't fill. I heard it. 2 soft taps, then 2. Not under, not over. Inside. I drove to Hollow Mile at noon the next day because noon is supposed to be safe and because I was angry. anger is a great fuel for stupid errands. The sky was blank paper, the trees a handwriting I couldn't read. I parked at the last light and walked because superstition is only useless until it isn't. The mile looks like every road you shouldn't love. You want to follow it into its wrongness. Halfway down, the air cooled the way air cools before a storm that can't find a cloud. The hair on my arm stood up, not from fear, but from the pressure of listening. The road has a crown. The ditch has a throat. On the left, under a stand of hackberry trees, a square of ground was slightly lower, like a grave that had forgotten to decide which way to settle. There were pennies in the dirt. There were also bones I chose to call animal. I stood on the square and the world went quiet, even the insects. That quiet should have tasted like mercy, and instead tasted like something's mouth. I didn't step off immediately because I'm human, and humans stare at teeth. The quiet pressed against my eardrums until I heard my own blood. Then I heard the tap. Not on wood this time, but on dirt, like knuckles wrapping a tablecloth. 2, then 2. Kind, courteous, pub rules. Announce yourself. I said no, out loud to a patch of dead air, and felt ridiculous, and then less ridiculous, and then afraid. The quiet took the word and folded it. I stepped back, and the insects rushed in like applause. The road, relieved, made road sounds again. I walked home faster than is dignified, and when I reached my porch, there was a cassette player on the mat, heavier than it should have been, with a dead insect melted to its handle, a deliberate horror. The tape inside wasn't the 1986 field recording. It was unlabeled. I didn't push play. I didn't have to. Somewhere beneath my house, the hum I had blamed on the fridge opened its mouth, and I heard the tape anyway. Breathing. Nothing else. The breathing of someone who has learned not to cry because it makes the thing come closer. I slept at the diner in a booth that had once been red. The owner didn't ask questions people like us can't afford to answer. At 3 a.m., when the town's small drunk came in the door, he took one step onto the tile and began to cry without making a sound. The owner brought him water. The deputy arrived without his hat and put his big hand on the man's back. Behind all that, on the radio that never changes station, the late-night talk host took a caller who wanted to talk about Hollow Mile. He cut her off. "We don't take local calls," he said, and his voice broke, the way a tire breaks when it rolls over. Something it knew was there. In the morning, the deputy sat across from me and ate eggs like a man who wanted the eggs to say something. "They don't go away," he said, not bothering to tell me who they were. "They change how they ask." "What do they want?" "Quiet," he said, which felt like a betrayal from the world. "Not our silence. Ours is too messy. They want the kind where nothing is left in the air. They want to be the last thing a place says." He looked older when he added, "We keep them fed with other sounds. Music, church bells, clatter. We drag the world through the mile and make the air thick with the opposite of empty. It works until it doesn't, and then we pretend it will again." "Who's we?" He smiled in that way that isn't a smile. "People who can't move." They tried it that Sunday. The church rang the bell wrong, not on the hour but on the half, then on the quarter, then in a long roll that taught the trees a long word. The parade of nothing marched down Hollow Mile and the town filled it. Trucks with tailgates rattling, a boy on a bicycle with baseball cards pegged in his spokes, 3 people dragging chains to make the sound of an intention. I walked with a cassette player in a backpack, batteries new. We made a clamor that wasn't joyful, but insisted on joy. The mile swallowed some of it, and some of it pushed back. For an hour, the air shook in a way that would have been holy if holy things weren't already used up. The quiet retreated how smoke does, uneven, as if reconsidering where it meant to be. I felt something in my mouth loosen, a word or a tooth, and swallow it because there was nowhere to spit. At the end of the mile, on the town side, we all stopped because stopping together felt like part of the spell. Then the deputy laughed once with no humor and said, "Again next week." That night, the wind chime on my porch rang once, not with wind, with decision. I opened the door and the air smelled like coins. The cassette player lay on the mat again, different tape inside, label in a hand that hadn't yet learned to give up. Hollow mile inside. I put it on my kitchen table and plugged it into an outlet I had already taped over, because I am a person who makes plans that never stand up. I pressed play. The first minute was my own house. You know the sound of your house. It's like hearing yourself on a recording and knowing it's you, even if the voice feels wrong. The second minute was outside. Crickets, the brief cough of a truck on the highway, the hush the maples make when they think. The third minute was the mile. You can hear a place on tape if you are from there. Even if you aren't, you can feel the way it makes the air fall. 2 minutes of dead. The fourth minute was breathing. The fifth was the double tap. The sixth was my voice saying, "No." I stopped the tape and didn't feel crazy until the silence that followed got eager, like a dog leaning toward a hand. I pressed play again. The seventh minute was a voice I know the way I know my own shame. "Come home when it quiets," it said. And the sound scratched the inside of my ear from a place my life can't forget. It was my mother's voice, dead 5 years, saying the sentence she had never said, in the tone she had used to tell me the soup was ready. I threw up, not from fear, from the sudden knowledge that I was going to answer. The tape clicked. The room filled with the smell of wet metal. I stood and opened the door, and the wind chime turned and the porch boards creaked as if a person were shifting weight politely to one foot, then the other. 2 taps, then 2. The second pair had a smile in them. You can hear a smile, especially when you aren't supposed to. I closed the door, locked it, and slid down the wood the way a person hides from the sea. People think the danger in a place like this is being dragged. The danger is being invited. The next day, I went to the post office and asked for the unmailed box. The clerk pushed her glasses down and looked at me, like I was the kind of problem you can't solve, but can put a stamp on. "We don't rent that box anymore," she said. I asked who had written the letters. She said, "They all did." I asked who they were. She said, "Everyone who stayed too long." She slid the box across the counter anyway. "Bring it back," she added, as if the box were a library book and not a promise someone had abandoned. I opened it in my car. The letters were variations of the one I had already read, but the last few had details that snagged like fishhooks. Bring the recorder. Bring a bell. Bring the thing that slows your heart. The last one wasn't paper. It was a square of dried mud with the words pressed into it with something small and bare. Come when it's quiet. The O in come had 4 points, like a mouth studied by a child and improved. I didn't tell anyone my mother had spoken. It felt like telling would make the voice real in a way It already was too real. Instead, I sat at the diner and listened to the radio find and lose stations in the middle of the day, which radios don't do unless a place has decided to be a mouth. Marshall sat with me because men like him know when to sit with a person and not talk and drink coffee that doesn't help. After a while, he said, "It learns from you. Don't teach it." "Teach it what?" "How to ask," he said. "It has the knock. Don't give it the door." We tried louder. The church bell, a new recording at double volume. The high school band braved the bend with their brass-making rectangles of sound on the road. A kid revved a dirt bike in a circle until smoke drew a shaky halo in the air. I walked the mile with the tape on, and my mother's voice came and kept coming. And each time it came, the quiet got better at wearing it. By the end of the week, the voice didn't slide at the edges anymore. It glued to the air and cured. The town said we were winning, because that is what towns say when no one has disappeared yet. But at night, the taps moved. Not at the porch, at my walls, and then the ceiling. And then, once, inside the bedroom closet, where no one knocks, unless they mean to be sweet. 2, then 2. Polite. Patient. My mouth kept of its own accord the shape of an answer. I put my fist against my lips until the bones hurt, and waited for the urge to go somewhere to pass. It didn't pass. It paused. That is different. I started packing. Not a lot. A sweater, a photo she'd hated, the tin of chamomile tea we pretend helps. I left the cassette player because I knew I wouldn't need it where I was going. The mile would supply its own. I folded a note and left it for the deputy and for the woman at the junk shop and for the clerk at the post office, even though I didn't know their homes. The note said, "Do not follow. Bring bells. Lie about the time." It was nonsense, unless you ever loved someone so hard you learned their wrong habits on purpose. At dusk, I parked at the last light and walked. The air was already making itself ready, big lungs filling for a long note. I stepped onto the square where the insects stop and did not look at the pennies. The quiet put its hand to my cheek and waited, because it had learned waiting from us. I said nothing, because I had learned nothing can be a kind of yes. The taps came, so close to my ear I felt the air move. 2, then 2. Then a third set, lower, almost shy. As if the place understood that people like threes. The trees didn't move. The sky had no opinion. The road kept being a road, poor fool. I closed my eyes and the quiet put itself inside my mouth gently, as if not to startle a bird. The first breath I took down there tasted like the coins on my porch, like the handle of the cassette player, like the top step of a church no one should enter after midnight. The second breath didn't come. The quiet held it the way a person holds a baby. Spine in the crook of an arm, head supported, the whole world looking like something that might not break if you are careful. Someone grabbed my coat, not hard, decisively. The deputy. He didn't say my name. He didn't swear. He put one foot outside the square and one foot in, and for a second I saw a man become a hinge. He shoved me backward into the insects, and the insects applauded, and the sky remembered how to be sky, and I dropped like someone had cut the rope of me. We lay there and breathed like we had both won a race we didn't enter. He didn't make a joke. He said, "Next time, we bring everyone." Which, in Larkspur, is what a promise sounds like. They did bring everyone. Not to chase me, but to confuse the mouth. The whole town, even the ones who don't go out at night if they can help it. They brought pans to bang and babies who don't yet know how to be quiet. They brought radios set to stations that can never agree. They brought dogs. They brought the number station on a loop because sometimes you weaponize your hauntings. They lined the mile and the mile, tried to learn all their sounds at once, and got greedy and choked. The quiet was an animal surprised by meat. It stumbled. It slept. When it woke, it was smaller. That's all you get, mostly. Smaller. Weeks later, my mother's voice tried once more from the radio in daylight while I brushed my teeth. It said, "Come home." And then it said, "When?" And then the battery died because I'd not charged it. I didn't replace the battery. Sometimes you don't feed the thing. Sometimes you overfeed it with other food until it forgets you were sweet. The taps have moved further out now. Porches down the block. The pole at the end of the street. Sometimes the glass of the phone booth that never had a phone. The wind chime rings when wind asks it to. The house hums when the fridge does. The letters in the junk shop went to someone else who thought they were beautiful, because some things can be, even when they're not. The cassette player sits in my attic, unplugged. On rainy nights, it clicks once to let me know it remembers. People come through town in the fall and ask about Hollow Mile because you can feel where the story is strongest and the air tastes like batteries near it. We tell them, don't stop. We laugh. We say it's a weather thing. We ring the bell wrong on purpose. Sometimes. We send the bad radio at it like a dog that's mean only to the mean. And if someone asks about the pastel place, we say, she stays. We all stay. We say it like the weather, like it might rain. We look at the edge of town the way you look at the sea when you want to believe you taught it your name. This morning, the porch boards creaked without anyone on them because wood is allowed to complain. I opened the door, and the air smelled like leaves forgetting to be leaves. On the rail, someone had left a penny pressed into a small square of dried mud. The print on it wasn't a word. It was a mouth, 4 points, neat, like a child had improved the shape. I flicked it into the yard, and it fell with the relief of a thing that doesn't have to be kept. Then I went inside and turned every radio on. Not loud, just enough to make a weather of sound in the rooms. I boiled water I didn't need and let the kettle sing thin. I rang a spoon on a glass 3 times. I made the house busy with life's little arguments, the lovely, untidy kind. When I turned the sink off, the quiet in the gap did not lean in. It held itself, the way a trained animal holds when told. The wind chime, courteous now, flicked once in thanks. Around noon, I drove past the last streetlight and didn't stop, because names can be armor. The mile watched me with its mouth closed. The radio found a song I didn't know and played it anyway. Behind the song, somewhere in the layers of sound we had taught the place to love, I heard 2 soft taps, then 2. Not asking, saying hello. I tapped the steering wheel back, twice, then twice, because sometimes you give the world a habit it can keep that isn't you. I didn't look in the mirror until the diner's neon made a false sunrise, and when I did, there was no handprint. The dust was smooth, the way untouched things are. I parked, went inside, and told the deputy and the owner and the clerk and the woman from the junk shop that the mile had learned its manners for now. We didn't cheer. We ordered pie. We left the door open so the bell could find a way in if it needed to be a mouth for a better thing. We ate and talked about easy weather. We pretended the town didn't all breathe together when the clock ticked past the wrong hour. And when it did, and nothing happened, we let ourselves talk louder. The good kind of loud. The kind that keeps a place full so it forgets to ask you to finish the story for it. If you pass through and your radio dies, don't pull over. If you hear the taps, keep your hands on the wheel. If the quiet offers you a voice you miss, tell it supper is at 6, and you're late already. Drive until the light looks cheap again. Find the people who know how to make noise that sounds like living. Sit with them. Learn the shapes their mouths make when they say your name. Then say theirs back. Twice, then twice, and keep going.